see. Can everyone see?
Yes, very well.
Okay. So, good evening, everyone. Last week, I gave a brief overview of how nitric oxide works to dilate our blood vessels and all the health benefits that that brings. And as I ended my talk last week, I kind of shared some results that were obtained from an independent lab that's contracted by Kyani to show that Nitric Extreme can actually induce nitric oxide production in these endothelial cells that represent the circulatory system in our bodies. Well, today I'm going to focus my talk on the plant that NitroFX and Nitro Extreme is extracted from. So this plant is called Noni in Hawaii and Tahiti, and its scientific name is Morinda citrifolia. It's native to Southeast Asia, but it can grow in tropical and subtropical regions of the world. Different parts of the plant have actually been used by Polynesian healers to treat various health issues, ranging from diabetes, high blood pressure, aches, pains, burns, arthritis, inflammation, against tumors and infections, and also to fight the effects of aging. So if you look on the right here, this is an image of a noni plant, and the fruit is actually made up of a cluster of flowers that get fertilized. So from that top, portion, that's the flowers that are still blooming. Okay, once they get fertilized, they form a fruit. So as the fruit develops, it grows bigger. The unripe fruit is still green. When the fruit ripens, it actually becomes lighter in color and turns a little yellowish. People have described the ripe fruit as cheese fruit or vomit fruit. You can imagine the smell and the taste of this raw fruit that you can get from the noni plant. Probably doesn't taste very well. So most people would find it hard to eat as a supplement, but Kyani has done a great job in extracting the goodness from this plant and making it in a form where we can, easily swallow it. Well, Dr. Thomas Burke, who is a member of the Scientific Advisory Board of Kyani, discovered that this plant is an excellent source of dietary nitrates and nitrites that can boost nitric oxide production. So I wanted to actually do some research on the noni plant itself and see if there's any research studies on the plant and how it can help different health issues. So the first thing I did was I went to this database called PubMed. And this is an online database where most research scientists go to. And on this database, you can search for any type of articles on different subject areas that you want to learn about. All the articles in the database are published in peer-reviewed journals. And what that means is the research results have to be validated by scientists that are in the same field, doing the same type of research. And the scientists have to find the results significant and see that sufficient controls and experiments are done that the results are believable and repeatable. So only then can these articles be published and be placed on this database. So when I searched the PubMed database using the keyword Morinda citrifolia, I found over 700 papers published. I was pleasantly surprised because that shows how much research is being done on this plant. And we know that research costs money. So for scientists to invest the research dollars on studying this plant means that there has to be some strong evidence that the plant is helpful for human health. So the first thing I wanted to see is what this plant has to do with hypertension. We all know that nitric oxide helps dilate blood vessels and improve hypertension. So I searched PubMed with the keywords Morinda citrifolia, which is the scientific name of Noni, and hypertension, and found 14 papers published. So here I only highlighted 2 papers. The paper on the left, the authors actually wanted to see if the Noni leaf and fruit extract can help alleviate hypertension caused by a chemical called dexamethasone. So dexamethasone is a steroid, and it has a side effect of increasing blood pressure. So they induce hypertension in rats, and then they fed the rats these extracts from Noni leaves and fruits. And they found that the blood pressure of the rats actually decreased after taking the Noni leaf and fruit extract. So the systolic blood pressure decreased by 16.71%, and the diastolic blood pressure, which is usually the lower reading when you do your blood pressure readings, decreased by 21.49%. So that's pretty significant. The second paper actually compared Noni root extracts with a drug that is widely used to treat high blood pressure and chest pain. So this drug name is called verapamil. And they found that Noni root extracts had the same effect on vasodilation, which is dilating of the blood vessels, and preventing spasm of cardiac muscles. Spasm is like, you know, uncontrollable contraction of the cardiac muscle, and that usually happens when you have a heart attack. So they found that Noni root extracts have the same effect as this drug that people use for these problems in humans. So what about diabetes? When I searched diabetes and Morinda citrifolia, I found 40 papers published. And this paper that I put up here was actually done, a study that was done on patients that have type 2 diabetes. So the authors had 20 of these patients, okay, that have pretty high fasting blood sugar levels. They were placed on a carbohydrate diet, so they reduced carbohydrate diet. So they, you know, try to cut down the amount of carbohydrate the patients take in. And the patients were also treated with anti-diabetic drugs and or insulin, but at that point, there's no improvement in their fasting blood sugar levels. So with this group, they gave them Noni fruit juice for 8 weeks, okay? And then the authors measured during and after the 8 weeks of treatment with Noni fruit juice, whether the daily fasting blood glucose and the HbA1c levels in the study group decreased. Well, the authors concluded in their paper that Noni fruit juice has the potential to regulate elevated blood sugar levels because they saw that it did significantly decrease daily fasting blood glucose and HbA1c levels in this study group. They also mentioned that Noni fruit juice, unlike anti-diabetic drugs, do not have adverse side effects. And patients can also benefit from the antioxidative, anti-inflammatory, wound healing, antimicrobial, and hormone regulating properties of the Noni fruit extract. So all really good results. Well, as I was doing you know, research on hypertension and diabetes, I came across this paper which studied acute consumption of Noni juice on young adults. And they essentially got like a group of college students, and they gave the college students either like Noni juice, chokeberry juice, or energy drinks, and then compared and measured their blood pressure, their heart rate, and their blood glucose levels. So these are all young adults that have no underlying cardiovascular or diabetic disease, okay? And 80 subjects were divided into 4 groups. First group were given like, you know, Noni juice, 30 mils of it, and they were given 3 portions within 3 hours. So each hour they were given 1 portion. Second group was given chokeberry juice. So chokeberry is actually a type of berry that supposedly should have a higher antioxidant levels than common berries like blueberries, blackberries, raspberries. And they have been thought to help with lowering blood pressure. Whereas in contrast, energy drinks are known to be rich in caffeine and sugars, and they usually cause an adverse effect on health because it raises blood pressure and blood sugar, and can eventually lead to cardiovascular disease and diabetes. Well, in this first graph, they were measuring the systolic blood pressure, and as you can see, for the Noni juice, the systolic blood pressure actually decreased by around 6 units. The energy drink increased systolic blood pressure by around 5 units, whereas water and chokeberry juice didn't really change the systolic blood pressure. What about diastolic blood pressure? When you look at the diastolic blood pressure, acute consumption of Noni juice actually decreased diastolic blood pressure as well by around 4 to 5 units. Okay, energy drinks, well, the other line that is highlighted here is chokeberry, so it does decrease diastolic blood pressure, also by around 4 units. But the subjects started off with higher blood pressure readings to start with. Energy drinks, on the other hand, increase diastolic blood pressure by at least 10 units. And let's look at heart rate. Same here for Noni juice. You can see that acute consumption of Noni juice decreases heart rate. It decreases heart rate by around 6 beats per minute. If you look at the chokeberry juice, it decreases it, but to a lesser extent, maybe 4 beats per minute. Energy drink, once again, increased heart rate, and water didn't really have an effect. What about blood glucose? So when they measure blood glucose, for acute consumption of Noni juice, there's a significant decrease in blood glucose. So how do we determine significance? Is by this statistical value, p-value. The smaller the p-value, the more significant the reading or the difference. So for a p-value less than 0.1, that's pretty good. 0.055 is a pretty significant result. So you see a decrease in the blood glucose level from 86.1 to 79.8. For chokeberry, there wasn't a significant increase or decrease at all. Energy drink significantly increased blood glucose level from 83.6 to 96.8, and water decreased it to a certain extent. So you can see that the authors here conclude that Noni juice is effective in lowering blood pressure and blood glucose, but of course they conclude that more research needs to be done for long-term effects. I'm pretty sure that a lot of us that are taking Kyani know that, long-term it does help. Okay, so what about cancer? When I searched up cancer and Morinda citrifolia, I found 84 papers published. That's quite a lot of research being done. And actually for cancer, a lot of researchers are interested in finding natural sources to treat cancer because we know all chemotherapy drugs have a lot of side effects. Well, in the first paper here, the authors wanted to see if Noni juice extract can increase the survival rate of mice that have been injected with lung cancer cells. Okay, so they compared mice injected with lung cancer cells, treated with Noni fruit juice, and mice that were not treated with Noni fruit juice. And how they measure survival is they essentially see how many mice survive at the end of the experiment, which is 50 days. So they inject with lung cancer cells, treat them, and then see how many mice are remaining alive at the end of the experiment. So the authors say that if the mice can survive 50 days, they are essentially cured of the cancer. So when they treat with noni juice extract or let the mice ingest noni juice extract, they found that the mice that are treated with noni juice extract actually survive at the end of 50 days compared to the group that wasn't given noni juice extract. So to confirm this in vivo result, so in vivo means like the experiment is done in living organisms. They wanted to do an in vitro experiment where they actually test the noni juice extract directly on lung cancer cells grown on petri dishes in the lab outside of the mouse, right? So when they did that, surprisingly, they saw no effect. So they saw that, oh, the noni juice does not kill the cancer cells. Why? But it does so in the mouse, right? So then the authors hypothesized that maybe there's a system in the mouse that is actually being used by the noni fruit juice to target cancer cells. So they hypothesized that the immune system is what is modulating the anti-tumor activity. So what they did was they repeated the in vivo experiment, which is within living mice. They treated lung cancer bearing mice with an immunosuppressive drug. So the immunosuppressive drug essentially inhibits your immune system, right? It downregulates the immune system. Your immune system is not as active. So immunosuppressive drugs, and then they gave the mice noni fruit juice. And indeed, when they did that, the mice didn't survive. Okay, less mice survived till 50 days, which means that when you suppress the immune system, noni fruit juice cannot give rise to the anti-tumor activity. Okay, so it's working through the immune system. So okay, authors wanted to confirm that result, right? To make it very like solid, their hypothesis really solid. So they repeated the in vitro experiment where they treated the lung cancer cells that are growing in petri dishes, and they treated it with noni juice, but this time they added immune defense cells into the petri dish, and they saw that there's an increase in cell death. So once there's the presence of immune defense cells plus noni juice, you're able to kill the cancer cells. Okay, so they further showed the mechanism of how the immune defense cells can kill cancer cells, and they showed that the immune defense cells can produce nitric oxide as well as various immune cell signaling molecules that result in cancer cell death. And they did an additional experiment where they treated mice that have the lung cancer cells. They treated them with suboptimal chemotherapy drugs, so not like the strong concentration of chemotherapy drugs, with and without noni juice. And they found that the combination of noni juice and suboptimal doses of chemo drugs actually improve survival rate way higher. So they conclude that noni juice could possibly be combined with suboptimal chemo drugs to help reduce toxic side effects of the drug and improve survival rate. So that's pretty impressive results from this paper. The second paper on this list wanted to compare noni leaf extract to a chemotherapy drug, erlotinib. This drug is used against metastasized small cell lung cancer and pancreatic cancer. So they want to compare the two and how either one can affect lung cancer. So I'm just going to show one graph from this paper, and it's measuring tumor volume. So the authors basically implant tumor into mice, okay, lung cancer tumor, and they treated them with the different substances. So either control that's treated with saline, that's the top line on this graph. The second one is with erlotinib, 50 milligrams per kilogram of body weight, or 2 different concentrations of Noni leaf extract. So if you look at the graph, the 300 milligrams per kilogram body weight of leaf extract actually reduced tumor volume more than the chemotherapy drug, okay? So that's pretty significant. I mean, compared to a chemotherapy drug, it can actually reduce tumor volume. The authors said that they showed evidence that the leaf extract actually targets lung cancer cells by enhancing immune responses, suppressing proliferation, and interfering with various tumor growth signaling pathways. The last 3 papers on this slide is focusing on a molecule called demnacanthol that is derived from the root of Noni plants. And actually, if you just do a search on demnacanthol, 20 other papers show up, and they show the way this molecule works. It causes cancer cell death. So it causes cell death in cancer cells, and it has been shown to have anti-tumor effects on a variety of cancer cell types, including oral, skin, leukemia, liver, pancreatic, colon, breast, and prostate. And this is probably not exhaustive list, so if you actually go and do the research yourself, you might be able to find more different types of cancer cell types that can be affected by this molecule. So since we know that Noni fruit juice can affect the immune system, I wanted to see if there's evidence for Noni plant extracts to modulate and alleviate allergic responses. So I found 3 papers when I searched, allergies and Morinda citrifolia. And in this paper that I put up here, the authors wanted to see if Noni plant extracts, the leaf and fruit extracts, given orally to mice at different intervals can prevent allergic reaction to a chemical called DNFB, or dinitrophlorobenzene. This chemical can cause contact dermatitis, so it can cause skin allergic reaction. So when you put it on the ears of this mice, they will the allergic reaction will cause the ears to swell up. And by measuring the thickness of the ear, you can tell how strong the allergic reaction is. Well, when they treated the mice with fruit and leaf extracts, they found that the mice have less immediate allergic reactions and also late and very late allergic reactions. So it does modulate and alleviate allergic reactions to allergens, okay, skin irritants. They compared the effect of the leaf and fruit extract to steroids, and of course, steroids work way more effectively, but steroids also have a lot of side effects. If you look at long-term steroid usage, there's adverse effects in psychiatric, like affecting your sleep, mood swings, your skin. The skin gets thinner if you have long-term use of steroid. It affects your nervous system, your cardiovascular system, your bones, your hormone system, immune system, affects the eyes and development, growth development. So long-term use of steroid is bad. If we can avoid using steroid to treat our allergic reactions, probably Noni plant extract will be much better. Okay, so I was interested in figuring out if Noni plant extract has any effect on gout, because I for one know several people that are affected with gout. And so the cause of gout is the production of this chemical called uric acid, and it's produced by the conversion of purines that are found in diet. Like, I think seafood is rich in purine, tofu, certain vegetables have high purine levels. Well, purine is converted to hypoxanthine, and then to xanthine, and then uric acid. And it's all catalyzed by an enzyme called xanthine oxidase. When uric acid accumulates, it forms crystals and is deposited in the joints, like usually in your toes, and that causes really painful reaction. So to treat gout, usually doctors would prescribe this chemical called allopurinol. Allopurinol, it inhibits the enzyme xanthine oxidase, but this chemical has a long list of common and rare side effects. Well, I actually found a paper that talked about Noni fruit juice and how it inhibits that enzyme, xanthine oxidase. So in this study, the authors showed that Noni fruit extract can inhibit the enzyme xanthine oxidase in a dose-dependent manner. And that explains why, people have long used Noni fruit juice to treat gout. Okay, what about antimicrobial effects? I'm not going to go into detail with this. I'm just going to show you that there's 122 papers published on this, and it covers all the different microorganisms, pathogens that can attack our bodies, including parasites, bacteria, virus, and fungal. If you're interested, I can you can have this presentation and look up the references yourself and see that there are lots of antimicrobial effects that different parts of the Noni plant can help us against. Wound healing. I found that there's 5 papers published about wound healing, and picked out 2 papers to talk a little bit about. The first paper, the authors used Noni leaf extracts to study wound healing properties in mice, and they found that the leaf extracts can help wounds to heal 5 days faster than control. I don't know about you guys, but usually when I have cuts or even like burns, I would put some nitro or nitro extreme on my cut and burn, and usually it actually heals pretty quickly. The second paper studied wound healing in diabetes-induced rats, and they found that not just improved wound healing when treated with Noni fruit juice, these diabetes-induced rats also have lower blood glucose levels compared to the control group. So all of this, if I summarize it in a Venn diagram, to give you an idea, like this is not exhaustive. So I mean, there's 700 publications. I didn't read all 700 of them. I kind of just browsed through a lot of those and tried to narrow down some, health effects of ingesting Noni plant extracts. So if you see from the papers that I presented today, the fruit extract can help lower blood pressure. It can lower heart rate, and it can also relieve gout. The leaf and fruit extracts can both help relieve allergy and help with wound healing, and also have antimicrobial effects. All 3 root, fruit, and leaves have anti-cancer effects, and the roots and fruit extracts can both relieve hypertension. So this is just from my brief presentation here. I'm sure there's a lot more out there. If I had more time, maybe or if this presentation can be longer. I don't want to bore everyone, but one thing I want to point out is these research studies are done on different parts of the plant, right? Either with roots or with fruit or with leaf. Well, the awesome thing about Kyani is that they have come up with a proprietary blend of the Noni concentrate from the entire plant. So not just the fruit, it includes the root, the stems, and the leaves, and everything added up together to form the Nitro FX. And actually, NitroFX has 50 times the effect of diluted Noni juice. A lot of the research was done on just Noni fruit juice itself. And you can see if we use the entire plant, we're actually protecting our body for all of those things. The Nitro Extreme, on the other hand, is 3 times more concentrated, so it's even more effective than Nitro FX. And it also includes different vitamins and minerals like vitamin B1 and niacin that helps with blood circulation, lowering of LDL and triglycerides. Magnesium helps with blood pressure and relaxes the muscles. Zinc boosts our immune system. Chromium regulates blood sugar, and CoQ10 is helpful for energy production. So everything included, I think Kyani has done a really great job in producing these products for us to ingest easily. At least it doesn't smell or taste like vomit fruit. So with that, I'll end my presentation and hand it back to Catherine.